So we'll just sort of get into this topic, and we'll sort of get everyone's thoughts on this, and then I'll say hello to you again, VR, my dude. Basically, everyone was reporting Titans and Doom Patrol. That's it; they're done. It's an interesting element, this anyway, because they were originally developed for the cancelled DC Universe streaming service. Does everyone remember this? That thing that came out and like died within, I don't know, it was like 2-3 months or something like that. It's got like this whole DC Universe. It was like an app thing, and does anyone remember this?
Yeah, it's kind of like the CNN app.
Yeah,
They
very
decided to
bizarre.
do it right last minute before HBO Max became a thing, and then, as everybody predicted, it just got, basically absorbed into
Folded
HBO
in.
Max. Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. It's so bizarre.
There's no reason to have multiple streaming services, especially when some of them are so specific. I mean, to segregate these things out from a business standpoint,
Yeah.
that because you have to pay operational costs for each one, you have to pay advertising costs for each one.
Yeah.
It's just a complete waste of money.
Well, it's like Disney having Star Wars streaming platform. You're like, well,
Right.
why? You've got Disney Plus. What are you doing? Just bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they're going to be finishing up their 4th seasons, which are currently streaming. So the ones which are out now are the ones which are done. So the producers were said to have seen that the writing was on the wall and set out to ensure that the final seasons will give fans a satisfactory conclusion. Apparently, the decision to cancel both series was reportedly made before James Gunn and Peter Safran came on board. So we had this, an HBO Max spokesperson came out and said, while these will be the final seasons of Titans and Doom Patrol, we're very proud of these series and excited for fans to see their climactic endings. We're grateful to Berlanti Productions. I fucking hate Berlanti Productions. And Warner Brothers Television for making such thrilling, action-packed, heartfelt series. We thank Titans showrunner Greg Walker, executive producers Greg Berlanti, Akiva Goldsman, Sarah Schechter, Jeff Johns, Richard Hattem, and the team at Weed Road Pictures. For Doom Patrol, we celebrate showrunner Jeremy Carver and executive producers Greg Berlanti, Sarah Schechter, Jeff Johns, Chris Dingers, and Tamara Becker Wilkinson. For 4 seasons, fans have fallen in love with the Titans and Doom Patrol, investing in their trials and tribulations and in their legendary battles, saving the world time and time again. So this, this is interesting for a few reasons, primarily because it was made before James Gunn and Peter Safran came on board. But then they're like, he comes out and is like, it precedes us. It wasn't me. So you could stop that if you want. Surely, you could stop that. The head of DC, you could pick it up again if you wanted. It's not something which has to continue down the line. But obviously, he came out and said this over on Twitter. It says the decision to end the series precedes us, but I certainly wish the best for the talented group of creators, actors, and the rest of the crew that produced both shows. And then Andy came out. He said, James Gunn, I have a question that I'm genuinely hoping you can ask or answer. Even though you had no involvement with Titans and Doom Patrol ending, if you had wanted to incorporate those shows for your DCU, would that option have been within your jurisdiction or no? So this is an interesting insight into what power he has. Sure, Andy. What characters, performers playing those characters we keep in the DCU would be mine and Peter's cool, but that doesn't mean we can keep any TV show running indefinitely. So what do we make of that?
If I can give some insight.
You
this
may.
Goes back to, well, yes. Well, this goes back to what... this is the one time, so pay attention. It's the only time I have any insight.
It's the only time you're allowed to give insight as well, Tom.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
make it count.
My cage. As you know, I've had some Warner Brothers shows, and when I was writing on Be Cool Scooby-Doo, it's a perfect example of this. When they announce a show's canceled, usually the team behind it has been let go 5 or 6 months before announcement. And with an animation show, like I was saying, it's usually a year lead time from recording the voice actors to getting back the animation from whatever house is doing it. What happened with me with season 2 was up, and they said stay late. I think I worked up until the day before Christmas writing what would have been season 2, and then they announced they're letting it go in March. So I knew I was never coming back. They're like, write it over Christmas and you'll come back. But then 2 or 3 months into the next year, they're like, yeah, we're not bringing it back. We're going to finish out 2. So a year after I'd already stopped working on the show, 2 drops. And then people are like, oh, I hope you're going to do another one. I'm like, I haven't worked on this show in over a year. So everyone has scattered. Yeah, it's scattered to the 4 winds, I'm sure. The team that did the Titans that's dropping right now on television has probably moved to other jobs by now. So they can't bring it back. And in James Gunn's defense, he would have to call and ask everyone involved to break their current deals to come back and do the show. So it would cost
that makes sense.
a lot of money to start it again.
Yeah. Well, I think from my perspective, it's just interesting how James Gunn likes to I think James Gunn, we said this before on the show, is James Gunn spends far too much bloody time on Twitter talking to people when he should be releasing, official press releases via DC and things like that. I think this nonsense little, sort of excerpts here and there doesn't help in any way, shape, or form. And I just think it riles people up, because they're sound bites. They're just tiny little sound bites. The context maybe not always there. It's just not. I just think he spends far too long on Twitter.
He's running the risk of doing what basically Mangold did and put himself in a position now where, like I said, that if he had just kept his mouth shut or simply just put out a blank kind of statement of, hopefully you guys get like the movie when you get to see it in a year, et cetera, et cetera. I don't ever think I could ever be as good as Steven Spielberg, but I hope you guys enjoy the film. At that point, all it had to do was be better than Crystal Skull. Now that he's gone out and made an ass out of himself, that new Indiana Jones movie has to be as good as all the rest. And James Gunn's kind of putting himself slowly into that position here where, he's already
slowly. I think he's almost
yeah, you're right.
now.
It's kind of almost quickly into that position where it's like, now you're setting yourself up for failure, buddy, because no matter what you do, unless it's the best of the best. Yeah.
Valiant, let's get your astute observation. I see you typing away there.
Sorry, no, I had to unmute real quick.
I see it. I see you typing away. Mate. You're there on your phone.
Yeah, my wife is texting me.
He's here, but he's not here.
Yeah, I see it.
Get here, man.
No, I think with anything in this case, it boils down to, especially what we've seen Zaslav talking about since he came in, right? Cost-benefit analysis. And especially when you're talking about rebooting the DCU from the ground up, which is effectively what they plan to do here, at least what they've said. They have to look at everything, right? What is in the ether now that is on HBO Max or that is in the pipeline? What should we keep? What can we let go?
So this is it. Sorry to just interject. This is actually interesting. What you just said sort of jogged my memory a little bit there. Is that there's going to be a period where there's basically nothing DC coming out. Because once these end, right, there's very little DC shows that are out. There's also a period of time where there's going to be literally no DC movies coming out. There's going to be a really long dead patch with actually nothing DC because no movies have been announced. They're not in pre-production.
Yep.
Like that's quite a surprise, actually. If you're looking at it, I didn't quite realize, sort of the compounding nature of what they keep canceling, and obviously the period without any green lighting. That's going to be it's at least like 2 years without anything DC, isn't it? That's a long time.
Roughly a year or so, yeah.
Yeah, and that may not be a bad thing. Especially if you're going to reboot, you want to give yourself some space between what was and what is to come before you just dive right into the next thing. But I think they look at shows like this and go, look, if this is not going to fit in a canon going forward that we're trying to build with DC, and if we're spending $10 million producing a show like this or something or whatever they're spending, and it's not really getting the audience traction that would warrant a $10 million outlay of production, then, like Zaslav has made it very clear, It's going to go. If we don't see a value to the money that we're spending, if we're not getting the kind of return that we expect, we're not going to go forward. Y'all were talking about Velma earlier. I don't know what the ratings are for that, but
Velma.
I think there's more people honestly hate watching that show than are watching it to enjoy it. And clearly, I can't imagine. Yeah, looking at that, I mean, if that keeps up, that'll be the next thing that'll disappear. I mean, that kind of thing. It's cute and great to have it, but I mean, it's not like David Zaslav is sitting there personally reviewing every minute of every episode of every show that's being produced. Right. He's got people that he pays to do that because he's got much bigger fish to fry right now and for the next couple of years. But I mean, he'll look at something like that and go, okay, this isn't working. This, we can't spend $10 million to make season 2 of Velma or whatever, or whatever they're spending to do this, because nobody's watching it. We're not getting $10 million worth of value out of this, and we're getting laughed at.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is, one thing Zaslav has said, we don't know what James' plan is yet. All we really know is he's going to do it in chapters, is what he's said so far. And we know that Zaslav has wanted one thing and one thing only from the start, and that is one unified universe. He said it flat out. We're not going to have 4 Batmen.
Yep.
Right?
No, but they have also said that the Batverse will still be happening and still remain separate.
There's been a lot of
they have said it
shady stuff around that. Here's the other thing Zaslav said when he was asked about when we will see Pattinson again. He goes, "Well, I'm sure you'll see him in the Penguin in the Penguin show, and we're proud of that and whatever." He didn't say shit about Batman 2. And when they're pushing the Batman 2 off to 2025 and Joker 2 got fast-tracked, that tells me everything I need to know about the stuff I was told, that it's probably true that they're waiting to see how the Penguin turns out on HBO Max before going forward with anything else.
I think that's a bit of an unfair characterization, actually, because when did the Joker come out? 2019?
2018, I think.
So 2018, right?
No,
so
I think it was 2019.
2019, 2018, and Joker 2 is going to come out when?
This next year here.
Later this year or next year?
Or this year here, yeah.
This year, I think late this year, yeah.
Okay, but then Batman came out last year, and then it's going to come out in 2025. That's about the same distance, actually.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mischaracterization to be like, well, Joker 2's been fast-tracked. Like, well, actually,
it was greenlit and fast-tracked the day that he came in the door.
Yeah, but that's fast-tracked. But the time frame between them, it's not fast-tracked in terms of the actual time frame between the Batman and Batman 2 and Joker 2. They're about the same, realistically.
Yeah, but you're talking about two. Okay, yes, I get what you're saying, Nate. But we're talking about what Zaslav did the day he took control in April. The first thing he said is Joker 2, go ahead. Batman 2, he's sitting on.
But you know why that is? Well, they're not sitting on it because that's still that.
They got the Penguin going forward, but that's it.
But from what we know, it's happening, right? Obviously, we don't know anything else outside of that, but from what we know, it is happening. There's the other way of looking at what you're saying is that David Zaslav came in and looked at what the former head had done with Joker, and they weren't doing anything with it, and he going, why the fuck aren't you doing anything with this? Greenlight it. So there's that element is that's the sort of opposing side of looking at things, rather than when he came in and was like, yeah, we need to fast track it. He probably came in and looked at it and gone, why isn't this why have you sat on this?
Yeah, you're talking about
so much money. Joker? Why are you sat on this? What's going on?
That's just it. It's exactly right, Mr. H. And that's all a guy like David Zaslav saw was, look, okay, Warner Brothers made a Joker movie that cost $50 million to produce. They probably spent maybe another $40 or $50 million marketing it, and the rentals they got back from the global box office was close to $500 million.
Yeah,
duh. Where's Joker 2, bro? I mean, it's like that's all he saw with that. We spent $100 million and we got $500 million back. Let's do that again. That's it. That's all it was to Zaslav. Yeah.
And so obviously,
why would he turn around and say we're not going to have 4 Batmen then?
Well,
that's the other thing.
Clarify that he doesn't want 4 Batmen because that's nonsense. Everyone can see
and then you had James Gunn turn around and flat out say this is one of the few things he has confirmed in all of his rants on Twitter, whatever you want to call it, or his answering non-answers, is that he flat out said that no way is the Matt Reeves verse crossing over with his stuff. So that to me puts that stuff on ice. And that's the thing, is it is pushed out. It is pushed out to 2025. If the movie was such a big hit, they'd already be working on the Batman 2. I'm telling you right now. It was a mixed bag. They're writing it. Pre-production writing, yeah. They still ain't got it greenlit though.
I'm gonna check in with two people I know that are knee deep in Warner. One's leading the writing room in the Penguin show, and then the other one works on the Zaslav end, who I didn't know. I met. He's also an independent director. He gave me some very interesting insight in regards to what Zaslav was trying to get rid of, and it didn't happen. What he's gotten rid of. His take on the Zaslav team coming in. Maybe they're a little too big for their britches as far as where they're coming from. So it's very interesting. There's a lot going on there, but I do want to check in with the Penguins progress as well. And that's all I'm going to say right now.
All right. Update in a couple of weeks then, Paulie.
Maybe sooner, but we'll.
The only other thing I'll add to that is Matt Reeves did say that all the ideas he had originally for the Batman 2 were put into the Penguin. Now, why would he do something like that?
When did he say that?
When did he say that?
I'll find the interview.
And if it's before October, that's dead news.
Yeah. Well, also,
if he said it like last week, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's new.
The way a lot of these work too is someone like Matt Reeves signs a multi-year deal with Warner Brothers, and so he may have. Yeah, exactly. He already has. So he may have in that deal prior to the Batman have windowing of certain things that he needed to do, because I know he's writing another movie with the guy he wrote the Batman with, and I think some of his energy has to go there to fulfill this pipeline, the films they have to do. So you can slow simmer something like the Batman 2 and know it's not going away because you're funded, but there may also be, I'm not saying anyone's wrong, but there may also be a consideration that as part of his 10-year deal, if he has to deliver 4 other movies, that bandwidth has got to go to that film for that time. And if he's chosen to work with the writer that wrote the Batman, they can't be doing both.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I thought that'd be an interesting sort of topic. Second, Tom says, adding to the piece, Reeves mentioned offhand to some studio executives that he thought a second Batman movie would focus on how Oz became a crime kingpin, but rather than use this idea for a sequel to the Batman, the studio felt that the Rise of the Penguin would be better suited to a television series, and they're like, oh, we want to do that as a show, Reeves said.
Okay.
Well, when was that, though?
This was last year, so it falls within that region of Paulie's talking.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he comes up with from the people he knows.
I think one of the questions I'm going to ask my friend is, what's the Reeves connection? Is there any? Yeah. Okay.